You know the day destroys the night, night divides the day. Try to run, try to hide, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side, break on through to the other side.
God bless America. Welcome to The Ranch, everybody, the podcast that explores the people and happenings of Dry Creek Ranch, Eagle, and the greater Boise area. Couple quick updates. The rodeo is not coming to Dry Creek Ranch. Did have a conversation with the Eagle Rodeo earlier this week, and they did indicate that no, they have no interest or plans to come to Dry Creek Ranch. So that's something to take into consideration. If you were worried about it, it's not happening. If you were looking forward to it, you can still go to it in Avamore theoretically, though there is some discussion about moving it. The rep from Eagle Rodeo, though, did make it explicitly clear that they have no plans to come to Dry Creek Ranch. So think about that. Today's a quick update on the charter school going into Dry Creek Ranch. The hearing was last week where the county decided whether they would or would not allow Boise Hunter to actually give the land to West Ada or another school. I did ask Ryan Andrews to come back in because he is on the board and one of the active members fighting for the charter school, and he very graciously gave up a little bit more time and explained how the meeting went, what happened, and what the plan is moving forward. So without further ado, let's get into it. The man, the myth, the legend, Ryan Andrews.
Okay.
There you go. Oh, perfect. You sound beautiful. So listen, tell me about the meeting with the county and the school.
Yeah. It was a interesting day. I had just traveled in, so coming back from Hawaii and then in SoCal for a couple of days, and so I was really tired. Got off the plane at 4 and got dressed and then jumped to the meeting, and so I was just a little out of sorts. But what was interesting was, after we had to wait for all the other people in front of us, the staff had designated this as the denial, and they wanted to deny the adjustment to the agreement that would allow any public school, not just West Ada, and which, to me, it just seemed like such a weird situation. Like, why is the denial just already decided upon? And the reasoning that the staff said was because West Ada said they still want it. And I was like, how is that? Okay, I will still want it, but that doesn't mean it's a denial.
It doesn't mean it's the right idea for the community or the county or anything like that.
So the staff had asked a few questions and then put this in as an exhibit so we could read it as well, and to West Ada, and said, okay, what's your plans? And then West Ada, and it's been consistent since the beginning, has never really given a hard timeline for when they want to build a school. They said, hey, we really think we want the space, we want to build a school, but we have to open a bond, and the bond might not be open until 2023 or 24, and then there's planning, and then there's school building, which could lead to 6 to 8 years, maybe 10 years out. And even at that, they said maybe. And so it was just very kind of half-assed, if I'm going to be frank. And what they also mentioned on the Q&A to the staff was, well, this school's going to have to be, probably about 650 students, which was our target as a charter. Financially, it makes the most sense to be able to stay up with the cash flows. And they said it might be 2 stories. On this letter, they wrote this letter, and it was kind of like this really, blasé letter about, we still kind of want it, but we're not really sure, and we're already at capacity in West. And so the demand, they proved all of our points, is there is a demand for students to have a new school, because Seven Oaks or other schools are just filling up. They only have 30 positions, and they're getting new students every single day.
So they acknowledge that West Ada is already at capacity for what they can do with students. Yeah. And they're like, and we're maybe about 12 years out from doing this one.
Yeah, I think it's about, they indicated anywhere between 8 and 10, 12 years. And the big kicker for us was their plans was to build a 2-story school. And I don't know any 2-story school that would fit into the architecture of this neighborhood, let alone make any of the people that surround the area happy. Because now you're looking at this big building, potentially brick, and that's gonna be an eyesore. And so then it was our turn to talk, and or not our turn, but BHH.
And if I may ask really quickly, when you're saying the staff is made up of who? Because the county commissioners, the ones that actually get to decide, are different than the staff. So who's the staff?
The staff essentially works for the commissioners, right? They do the research, and then they'll summarize the situation, and then they'll give a recommendation. And the recommendation was to deny. And then the commissioners would hear both sides and then make a decision or a motion. Right. And I'll get to that at the end.
Okay, great. So the staff comes out initially and is like, hey, West Ada still wants it, and they're about 8 to 12 years out, and they are saying we're already at capacity, but they still want it, so we recommend, county commissioners, that you deny this request.
Right, which was silly, and what's great is the moment that he finished his presentation, the commissioners were like, wait a second, let me get this right. All this adjustment is asking for is to allow for West Ada still to be able to build a school, but also other schools, so whoever can build it first, essentially. Just open it up to more opportunity. And it doesn't seem like in this letter, we read this letter and we read their synopsis of what they want to do. It doesn't seem like they're really jazzed about this property, or they really want to build a school. They're kind of like, half-assing this approach and not really jumping on the opportunity. And even after pointing out the problems with how many people are coming into the community.
Right. And to be noted, West Ada didn't even have a representative at this meeting, correct?
Yeah, they didn't even bother to show up.
Talk about not being jazzed. Like, they didn't even bother to show up and fight for it.
Yeah, and so these are points that the commissioners were making before they even heard our testimony. And I was like, oh, great, this is off to a good start, So Travis Hunter gets up and gives a great presentation. And really kind of points out all the important parts of this to say, look, this community needs a school. There are kids spending an hour sometimes in between kindergarten or middle school on buses to get to and from school every day because we're the last stop. Some kids are faster. Some, it doesn't, parents drop off or whatever. But the bus schedule and everything, they talked about that and talked about the timelines and what's happening in the community, Avamore, and that they're getting a school or they're applying for a school, and they kind of left it more open. And all that BHH was asking for was an opportunity to get a school in here faster and open it up to any public school. So it's still inclusive, and it still has all the same features.
Right.
A lot of people assume that charter schools are expensive, but they're free. They're public schools, and so. There's no cost involved, and so and then another misunderstanding from the planning and zoning department when they denied, or they didn't deny, but they kind of just pushed the opportunity to say we can't make a decision.
Yeah,
right? And they kind of just wrote it off and then gave it to the commissioners to make the decision, and they were under the assumption that the charter school would be less students, but in our forecast and our plan, and with the charter we were working with, we the financial model works to where we have to eventually get to 650 students by like year 4 or 5, and so we can ramp into it, but and it's in line with what West Ada would build too. So it's not like either or any different other than timing and getting these kids in this neighborhood an opportunity to go to school sooner. And so anyways, we made the points. Travis did a great job making various other points. And then it was community members' testimonies. And there were some great, I can't remember the names of who came up, but there was some great testimony. Just talking about, like, this one lady came up and she's like, well, I don't have any young kids, but we love this community. And we all, bought into this community because we had understood there was going to be a school. And I think that the residents of this community deserve to get a school in here as fast as possible. And I think that's an impactful, thing to say, because it could be 2 or 3 turnovers if we go West Ada route in 10 years from now. So everyone that moved in here first, second, third phase, and they're like, okay, my kids are now in high school or they're in college by the time the school's out. This is kind of like, that was a factor into why we invested in this community.
Yeah, if you have a 2-year-old right now, it's entirely possible if you live in Dry Creek and moved in with the expectation of having an elementary or middle school. Right. If you have a 2-year-old right now, it's entirely possible that 2-year-old could be in high school by the time the school is finished. If you 2-year-old,
Right.
12 years from now, that's 14, that's a freshman in high school. So yeah, like this was one of the big draws, at least for my family as well, which is, hey, there's going to be a school here. Even if we don't go to this particular school, there's going to be, there will be facilities here. There will be, obviously park kind of set up and basketball courts and things of that nature. That was a draw.
Yeah.
One of the hesitations I did hear conveyed, from staff, and I don't know if this was one thing that they spoke about in the actual meeting or if it was in a paper beforehand, but they were saying, hey, look, the number of people coming out of Dry Creek is not that substantial. And one of the problems, I think they said something like 90 kids coming out of Dry Creek are going to the West Ada schools. But one of the problems with that is it presupposes that you wouldn't have more students going to West Ada if you had a charter school. And what I mean by that is even on our street, I think there are like 10 or 12 kids that go to private schools. And those students may not be going to private schools if you had a charter that the parents understood who was on the board, what the ideas were, what the philosophies were. If you had a school that was closer by, like you have all of these things where it's like, look, it's not 90 kids only in Dry Creek. It's only 90 kids that are electing to go to the schools as they are right now. And if you had a closer option, right? If you had an option where you could potentially be on the board and help steer the program in some degree, or at least steer the hiring of the administrators, you would have a completely different turnout from the community.
Yeah, well, school doesn't start tomorrow, right? So it might be 96 or 115 students today, but the community is growing, and
Right.
we're getting 100 new homes a year. People are moving in, 100 families a year are moving in, and with whatever percentage of kids that are coming with that. And it seems to be a much more kid and young family dominated neighborhood.
Right.
And maybe that's changed from the original plan, but every year it's going to continue. And if we don't act now on trying to get this school through, if we said today and we got the approval and BH had said, let's go forward with this charter, and it was today, we're still looking at it barely making a 2024 fall start.
Right.
So that's 2 more years of families moving in, school age students coming in. And so to make the argument about 96 students is kind of irrelevant.
Not only that, it takes the pressure off. If you have a charter school here, it won't just be for the Dry Creek Ranch students. Even if you only had 100 students coming out of Dry Creek Ranch, imagine the pressure that would be taken off of Seven Oaks and the other elementary schools in the area if there was a charter school here that other parents could bring their kids to. And again, let's assume that we get the traffic pattern just right, so it's not hugely impactful on the community. You don't have people driving through Dry Creek, but they go up, for instance, Brookside or something like that. If you have this school, you're going to take pressure off of the surrounding areas. So it's not just a benefit to the Dry Creek Ranch people. It's a benefit to all of the elementary schools or middle schools or whatever they are in West Ada. Because again, you have classes that are being overwhelmed. I have a student right now at Seven Oaks. Okay. He's in a class that is literally 100% first year students. They're all new. They're all from out of the area. They actually had to open up an additional class, which they did marvelously. Like, I'm so impressed with that school. But that school is overflowing, and they're handling it with grace. But let's be honest, you can only ask so much of the existing school system with the existing sites and administrators and funding. I mean, like, we gotta do something.
That's what I thought was funny, was they pointed out that problem in their letter to ask for a denial of this adjustment, but then didn't follow it up with, we're going to build a school right away to solve this problem. And so like approving this adjustment in how it's written only helps West Ada, breathe a little bit because of how much pressure there is. And also there's so many other benefits. Think about the parents that have to drive their kids to school. They don't take the school buses, but there's a lot of traffic displacement that will occur by putting a school in here. And then, of course, I think when it comes down to, let's say we get all the approvals, I think what it comes down to is we really need to have a solid traffic flow plan in place to alleviate any in-street movement of cars, which will lessen, anyone that's angry about the school being in the neighborhood, but also, it'll make it safer.
Right.
If we can funnel Brookside, which turns into Quail Valley, and Quail Valley is eventually going to go out to Dry Creek, and so if we can get a turnout that feeds into the planned rec center, stables, and fields and stuff that are going to build over there, and have that feeder be able to be the feed-in for turnout for school buses in the parking lot that way, so it goes around the community into the school, and really have the front be like a walk-in drop off, like in neighborhood walk-in.
Man, I would die if we could do that.
Yeah,
if we could just have a walk-in where you see all those kids coming in on Tower and they just flood.
Yeah,
into
they're
the
walking.
school.
I think that's the
it'd be
safest.
so cool.
That's the safest route. And so, anyways, I am working on a traffic plan and flow that is going to incorporate the driveway. When I was thinking was like a one-way driveway that loops in and around the rec center, drops off, has a parking bay for the trailers and such for the stables, but also has a turn in for the buses, and then the buses continue out and then come right back out Quail Valley Road, and then they're out on their way. And so I'll be done with that hopefully. I have to be done with that before October 1st, because there's an October 1st deadline to submit our application. And what was nice is, let me get back to the meeting. So a lot of great residents came, and I think it was Lana's husband came and made a few great points about the importance of the control, not only the value systems control of this community that we would have in a charter situation versus a kind of regimented, school district. And so I think tapping into what drew a lot of people into Idaho and out of the states they came from would be translated in this school value systems, and people would be able to feel comfortable sending their kids there. And maybe we might convert a few homeschoolers that said, okay, well, I don't trust the public school system. I can't go private. And, but if we had a very trustworthy value systems, a good principal and teachers and
incredible
kind of
transparency,
right, a well vetted curriculum that I could align with, then we might be able to transfer some of the homeschoolers and other private schoolers back into the community, which could increase that number. Again, I think talking about numbers of students we have today is totally irrelevant to what we're going to have in 3 or 4 years from now. So I think that's what we need to look at, is what's the projections.
Right. So the community gets up, Travis gets up.
Yeah, everyone
the
talks.
Older gal gets up.
And so
Joey gets up.
Yeah, so what happens is they get to the point, and the commissioners are like, this makes sense. They're actually making the points for us, which is great. And
this really makes sense, guys.
And so Ryan, one of the commissioners, said, hey, I'm leaning towards going against staff recommendation and approving this application the BHH put in, and then sort of the other commissioner, and then the commission chair said, well, what are the implications if we go against staff recommendations? The lawyer's like, if you go against staff recommendations, we have to open a new public hearing with a new staff recommendation of approval, and then have an opportunity for people to speak or whatever. So there'll be another public hearing with a staff recommendation of approval, potentially. I mean, it's not confirmed, but I'm pretty sure that's the way the commission was going towards. And they had asked for a few more details, like, even though it's not in their jurisdiction to dictate how big the school should be, that's a P&Z thing. That's actually the charter commission decision, but nonetheless, we're going to show them the plans and explain the timelines, and I think they understand that what's really important, it doesn't matter who's building this at this point, it's how fast they can build it, because that's really where the demand is. And right now, our plan with the charter school is the fastest out there, and if we go quickly, we can get it out by fall 2024. And this is going to take not only buy-in from BHH, but a lot of hard work by the board of the charter, and a lot of submission applications, tons of paperwork. I think there's an 80-page application that the board's gone through, and so it's a lot of work. It's not it's not a little bit amount of work, and every support we can get from community members is going to help. After that meeting, so we kind of got this like half approval. on that meeting, which is great. It's essentially on its way. We believe it's going to go through on this next public hearing. And so we had a final meeting on Friday with Jim Hunter, Travis, and a few other Boise Hunter representatives, and the proposed charter that we're working with, to go over financial models and kind of figure out, is this plausible? Like, are we going to be able to, make this school work? And so we all had some great conversations talking about the values of having this charter and saying, look, BHH, we need your buy-in, because we can't keep moving forward in the blind here. And if you're still not considering, this route, then, you need to let us know now, because we can't just continue to do all this work. And so right. I think at the end of the meeting, it's great. It's really nice to see how passionate Jim Hunter is about getting the school in here as soon as possible. He's not really attached to what school. Again, it's back to the core value, is what gets us a school here the soonest. And right. He's really involved in this process of more than I had expected. And it was nice having a conversation with him and his team to talk about, hey, here's the strategy, here's what we're doing. Yes, it needs to make business plausibility. We can't just say we're building a school and then it fails. So right. There's a lot of work that goes behind it, forecasting, trying to understand what's possible. And at the end of the day, the CFO of the charter school was on the phone and said, look, our numbers are tight, but we've gone through and we've really fine-tuned them, and we believe this is possible, and it should be just fine. So what they're tasked to do from Boise Hunter is attach a builder to it and get a real financial proposal that would give BHH a little more confidence that this is going to happen.
Right.
And they said that's not a problem. They had already been teeing up builders and stuff to make that happen. So, that's good.
I get excited about it. I think it would be so cool to have control over the design, have people on the board, just have a school functioning, right? Like a real hub for young people in the next decade. Right? Like, like a couple years from now. I mean, having the soccer field is fine, but just the amenities for the community, and then taking the pressure off the surrounding schools. All of that to me just seems fantastic.
Yeah, I mean, it's going to be great. I mean, BHH has a plan, and Jim made this point on Friday. Their plan was to build, baseball fields and some like rec fields around the stables and around the new community center and pool and everything, and that can be utilized by the school as an extension. So giving us more space to build a bigger building. Mm-hmm. But also use some of those amenities. Don't forget, when school's out of session, we all get to go use those parks. We all get to enjoy the space there. And so when it comes down, I'm pretty sure we're getting this approval and it's going through. The next task will be, let's find a way that, and I'm hoping my proposal will work, for this traffic flow that alleviates a lot of the other concerns inside the community by having school buses and stuff go inside Muir Pond or Tower or Cardinal. Right. And so when it comes down to that, we're going to need a lot of support from the community to say, hey, look, this is a great plan. Let's make sure this traffic flow, it makes sense for this school and alleviates a lot of the pain that might come with angry residents. Right. So looking forward to getting that done. I'll send you, so you can follow with everyone here, and I'll send you the rendering. And not to say that anyone can make a decision on Facebook, but at least everyone can understand a little more of how this might work.
Yes.
And like, oh, cool. Okay, I was wrong in my assumptions that this would be school buses nonstop and all this. It's like, we're going to try and funnel this completely off of Brookside, Quail Valley, and out and back, and that's it.
Yeah, and look, there are going to be some people that no matter what information you give them, no matter how you try to appease them, they may not be happy, and they might have their reasons, and that's totally fine. But the bottom line is, if done properly, this seems like such a benefit, such an asset to the community that has children, to the community that doesn't have children. And I'm like, if I'm a grandparent, I would love to have a community park that I could take my grandchildren to. on a regular basis. It's like, hey, they come over and see. Like I remember my grandmother when I would go and visit her. God rest her soul. She had a tennis court right next to her she had a little townhouse, and we'd go to the tennis court, and like, I was terrible at tennis, but we would always look forward to going to the tennis court when we'd go see, Noni, which was great.
Right.
And she had a little tiny pool too, and we'd go swimming there. And it was a way for her to be able to entertain us, because obviously high energy little kid, and have that connection. I mean, obviously I still very fondly remember those experiences with her, and having something like that as a hub in Dry Creek, obviously perhaps not tennis courts, but having that playground where you can go, with young people, if you're young or old or whatever. It's just, man, it sounds great.
Yeah, I don't think the debate out there is strong against the school in general. I think it benefits so many people. Like you said, even people without kids. I mean, benefits all of us in property values. So, I mean, I don't know anyone that doesn't care about that. So that'll be great for everyone. And I think what comes down to next is getting the design right, and getting the parking lots right, and then the impacted neighbors, hearing their voice and see what their concerns are, and trying to find a resolution that makes the best sense for the community.
And by the way,
if
you guys run into anyone, or if anyone out there knows anyone, I would be more than happy to chat with somebody who does not want the school here, because I think the number one thing we can do is hear and understand each other's concerns.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
Like if somebody is like, hey, I think this is going to be a problem, and I want to actually talk about it, I'd love to hear those things, because again, if we air out the hesitations people have within the community, we at least get you and the other board members at least have a chance to say, like, okay, I hadn't thought about this. Let's see if there's a solution. But if people keep quiet with their hesitations, you don't even ever get a chance to resolve it. And that's the worst case scenario in my mind.
I think there's a few people, and one person came up at the hearing saying, like, they were really concerned about the size of the school, and they were opposing this application to release it to other public schools or other opportunities. But that really wasn't the decision, right? It wasn't whether a school or no school. Like, in West Ada made it very clear that they plan to make a 650 student school.
Right.
2 stories.
Yeah.
And that's not the conversation. Size, right? And the size is dictated upon demand, and the amount of people coming into the school, and also dictated by the financial models of the public school that need to have a certain amount of students. That changes a little bit if we start getting supplementary grants and stuff, but for the most part, we have to hit that 650 kid number for it to make financial sense. It's just the way it is, and if we can alleviate that traffic flow, that will alleviate that problem. That they won't see that amount of kids coming in, and hopefully a majority of the students will be from inside the community, which will reduce traffic in general. And maybe we'll make a little bike parking lot or something in the front. Yeah. Anyways, so I think that I would love to, if you ever need any more information or someone wants to ask questions, reach out to the board, and we can help do a Q&A with anyone that's not really into the school in general. But that's really not on the docket at this moment. It's not school or no school. That's not the conversation we're having.
It's just when do you get into school?
It's when do you get to school.
That's it. Like the school's coming no matter what.
Yes. Yeah. That's another thing is, and this could be a worse situation, West Ada at this point has control of that land, which is just, and they are trying to hold on to it. If they got an offer from another community, planned community or another space, says, I know you need a school, here's a little more land, right? West Ada can still keep this land and turn it into where they park their buses, or where they keep their utility equipment. Right. Or and they don't have to build a school there. They could build something that's purposeful for them. Or they can sell it. And this just happened last year, where a deeded property went to a school district. School district sold it to a private company, and now there's low-income housing going in there. So, opening this application up to more public schools and out of the grasp of just one district would help alleviate those potentialities. Even though, I would hope that they wouldn't do that. But
Well, you can hope, but hope is not a strategy.
You can't be sure. It is possible.
Right.
That they don't appropriate the land properly for a school.
Sari and Lana had actually made that point very well, which was, hey, look, this may not, if left to West Ada, this may never even be a school. West Ada is going to use it somehow. So let's be clear, it's not going to stay in alfalfa field. It could be a facilities, area. It could be bus area. It could be, they could sell it. And again, low-income housing or otherwise, like you could have some private developer who develops some monstrosity, like these giant, whatever it is, it's the charter school is at least in part trying to guarantee that it will remain a school. And so I think your point is very well made, which is it's not a school versus no school argument. And by the way, if it's left to West Ada, it's going to become something.
Best case scenario is a 2-story school.
Right.
That's the best case scenario for West Ada to continue it. Worst case scenario is what we just talked about, but best case scenario is a 2-story school. So I would be surprised anyone that doesn't support the rewriting of this agreement to allow a charter school or other public school come in and save the day and give these kids a school sooner.
I'm still excited about the possibility of a white rancher school. Looks like something out of Yellowstone.
Dude, so like what I'm trying to tell the architect is I want this like veranda, right? So like it's protected from the rain, snow, or whatever, and it just goes around the entire school. And so it'd be so cool. Like white, kind of like the clubhouse we have now. Yeah. Like that same styling, and so
dude, it would be so great.
It's gonna look great. I think no matter what we do, it's gonna look great.
Yeah. Listen, I know you're tight on time. Thank you for coming and giving us an update. I really wanted to make sure that the community understood that your efforts are not going unnoticed, and we are making progress. And it sounds wonderful. And again, if anybody out there has an issue, please let me know. Because again, the more we can talk about it, the more we can reconcile everybody's hesitations, the stronger we're going to be as a community. Communication is key here, though.
Yeah, absolutely.
Right. Cool. Thanks, Ron.
Thanks.
Appreciate you.
Yeah.
Quick shout out to our sponsor, C² Social. C² Social is the leading expert in social media marketing and creative marketing. They have fantastic platforms. I have been a client of theirs for some time. I cannot recommend them highly enough. C² Social for all of your social media and creative marketing needs.
Can you stay